Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
It's time to get your hockey fix. This is Brave the Wild with your host, Paladino Joey, the leader of Minnesota Wild Hockey, here on thesportstuff.com. Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild with me, your host, Paladino Joey, riding solo yet once again. Again, Neil Nate Dog Thiessen shall return. Well, we're looking probably around March-ish or so. We're about to head into the Olympic break. In fact, we already have. So we've got 2 games to review, 2 games to preview. Shouldn't be all too much about the Wild this time around. There's just not as much, obviously only 2 games to deal with right now. And of course we will do our usual Iowa Wild checkup and North Stars memory, except the North Stars memory will be a little different this time around. So we'll get to that when we get to it in segment number 3. Segment number 1, well, we got 2 games to review. And I was talking about, wouldn't it be nice if the Wild were to somehow come out of these 2 games with 4 points? It's like, yes, the Tampa Bay Lightning are good. And it's a home game, or 2 home games for the Minnesota Wild, and then 2 road games to preview after the Olympic break, a Thursday, Friday back-to-back deal there to wrap up the month of February. Oh, boy. Yeah. It's like February starts and ends real quick here. Tampa and Nashville. I figured I had Nashville. I had the Wild defeating Nashville, and I had the Wild losing to Tampa in a shootout or overtime. Well, the Wild beats Nashville in a shootout, or beats Nashville in the overtime, but also defeats the Tampa Bay Lightning in a 2-1 victory. Darcy Kuemper, unbelievable. Now, this is Tuesday, February the 4th, by the way, this game. 2-1 victory. Darcy Kuemper, incredible in the game. Nino Niederreiter factoring in the scoring again. It just seems like how the Wild, it's like, okay, this guy's not been scoring lately, so now he's going to start scoring again. And isn't that cool? You gotta like that. Niederreiter scoring only 4 minutes into the game. Jared Spurgeon was all over the place in this game. I was very impressed with him. Keeping the puck in the zone in this case, and able to, get the puck on net, per se. Jason Zucker getting his first assist of the season also in this goal. But Nino Niederreiter on the power play, in the right place at the right time, obviously, and finishing. Very physical goal for Niederreiter, and that's what he provides for the Wild. Very happy to have him become a true power forward for the Wild. His 10th goal of the season, basically scored as he was getting knocked to the ice. Very cool. 1-0 Wild, and then it was kind of grinded out the rest of the way of the first period, the rest of the way in the second period. There were some nice shots on goal, and the Tampa Bay Lightning were doing everything they could to pepper Darcy Kuemper, but he pretty much slammed the door on those Tampa Bay Lightning. The third period, though, started very positively for the Wild. Darcy Kuemper, what am I talking about? Jared Spurgeon, had the puck, and then, the Tampa Bay Lightning took it away. Spurgeon just takes it right back, literally just strips it right back, and then feeds Danny Heatley for his 11th goal of the year. Danny Heatley, right place, right time, tips the puck in. Spurgeon, beautiful feed. That was all Spurgeon on that one, but then again, Heatley obviously finishing what he needed to with his great hands. No speed required there. Heatley's value has improved now that he's in the right place at the right time and using what skill he has left to score goals. His 11th of the year, very cool, only 34 seconds into the third period. It's like, oh my God, could we actually beat Tampa? Oh boy, but Filippupa, I keep calling him that, Filipula, and I deeply apologize for that. With his 20th goal of the year, that number one line over there in Tampa Bay, Martin St. Louis and Gudas, making it a 2-1 hockey game with 6 minutes remaining, had us a bit worried, but Darcy Kuemper and the Wild slammed the door. Kuemper with 34 saves in the game, only one goal given up, of course, 97% save percentage. Kuemper, I mean, sometimes he'll give up some softies, and some nights he is just going to flat slam the door. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. Oh, wasn't it cool? Very awesome to see what Mr. Kuemper could do in this night. Jonas Brodin was also all over the place, making some very solid defensive plays. I mean, there's really nothing to complain about this game other than you wish the Wild could finish some more. That beautiful line of Parise, Pominville, and Granlund had multiple attempts in the game. They looked great, but obviously nothing getting in there. Ben Bishop was outstanding as well, to be honest. He took a puck to the head at one point in the game, but stayed in there. He toughed it out, stayed in there. He's a very, very damn good goalie as well for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They should be, obviously, they're very proud of him, and Tampa Bay Lightning still a home ice advantage type of team in the Eastern Conference. Not home ice overall throughout the playoffs, but home ice in the first round. Tampa Bay Lightning look like a very, very solid team going into the springtime as we get closer and closer to that, into a possible playoff push. We'll see what happens there, but a very impressive win for the Minnesota Wild against an excellent hockey team with a ton of offense and a good goalie. Just an overall solid game. Very, very, very happy with this one. That's 2 points. A lot of people thought this was just going to be 1 or 0, but we came out with the W in this one. On to the Nashville Predators game. Slightly more entertaining in terms of, well, there were more goals in the game. Nino Niederreiter, a factor. Jonas Brodin, obviously, a factor as well. Nino Niederreiter with a strip. Nice, solid defensive play, keeping the puck in the zone, and then feeding Jonas Brodin with a wrister for his 8th goal of the year. So Jonas Brodin now 8 goals in the year, providing more offense than a lot of people expected when he was coming into the NHL. He is really becoming one hell of a player in so many ways. And Nino Niederreiter, a huge factor in both of these games. Very physical, very solid. Definitely a Mike Modano award candidate in these short 2 games. Just a fun little night for the Wild. I mean, I expected a victory. It ended up being a little closer than some of us would have liked, but it is what it is. Craig Smith tying this game up with only about a minute and a half later. A lot of us kind of like, oh boy, that was a little frustrating, but you're going to give up goals. That's no doubt about it. Headley and Pominville back and forth with Ryan Suter. Pominville was able to get it to Parise on the power play for his 19th goal of the season. To cap off a fairly entertaining first period. Craig Smith with a 2-goal night, though, in the second period with his 18th goal of the year. And it's like, oh boy, can the Wild finish this team? Is it going to be one of those frustrating little games? When it went to overtime, I mean, a lot of us scared to death. The Wild with so many opportunities to finish. Parise had a one-on-one attempt at one point in the second period. Looked like he was hooked, did not get the call, much to his chagrin and lots of Wild fans as well. But luckily things did work out once in a while. I mean, the Wild have been better in the extra period most of the time. In overtime, going into the shootout. Starting out the year, the Wild were terrible at it, but pretty much since that Colorado game, the second Colorado game, the Wild seem to have dramatically improved. Darcy Kuemper and such, especially against that LA Kings game, was when a lot of the Wild's fortunes changed, becoming more and more clutch in the extra period. Nino Niederreiter finishing to cap off a very, very nice 2 games for him. I mean, a Mike Modano award is going to go to Nino Niederreiter, his 11th goal of the season, without a doubt. A victory for him in a lot of ways. He did score against Tampa, did make a very solid play to set up Jonas Brodin, and also, again, scoring the game winner 2.5 minutes into the overtime period. Nino Niederreiter to me, is definitely the Mike Modano Award winner. And it's kind of funny how the Wild, it just seems like, well, this guy's not been scoring lately. Oh, now he is. Okay, now Parise. When is Parise going to, oh, wow, number one star of the week. Wow, that's an easy Mike Modano Award winner. Pominville, where's he been lately? In Granlund. Oh, there they are. They said they put together like 3 goals, this current week. That's the kind of season it's been for the Wild. It's just, this guy steps up, now this guy steps up, now this guy steps up. Oh, now it's Ryan Studer's turn. Hat trick. It's just pretty cool. Jonas Brodin always kind of hanging around, and obviously sometimes he has better games than others because he's young and developing, but a solid week for him as well. Zach Parise, again, getting another goal. He's definitely been on a tear of late. Pominville, Parise. It was kind of cool to see. This is like a potential first line, especially when Heatley was a scorer back in the, a few years back. Heatley was still kind of a scorer. This could have been like a first line, but then again, there's no center out of these 3. Granlund was on the ice in this play, obviously. In the power play, you're going to have more wings than when you're not in the power play, but you get the idea. Then at full strength, but man, very solid out. Heatley, obviously, his passing becoming more and more a factor. Really been a boost for the Wild. He is a nice passer. He's been giving the guys nice feeds, and again, this one was no different. But it was more of what you would call a hockey assist because it was Pominville was really the immediate assist, you could say. He was the one that officially set up Parise, but Heatley, a part of this one as well. Very cool along the way. Just a great couple of games for the Minnesota Wild. Not like they didn't beat anybody real bad or anything. These were both very close 1-goal games and everything that went down to the wire. And in fact, obviously, the overtime goal, obviously, that ends the game. No duh, right? But still, the fact that the Wild were able to win both of them, they were clutch, they were solid. The defense has looked much better than it did a couple weeks back with a few lapses against Colorado and such. A couple of frustrating ones. The Keith Ballards, the Kyle Brodziak with some terrible plays. Really, nobody this week, to me, really is like, boy, he had a stinky week. He really stunk it up. I mean, even Brodziak got an assist this week, and that was on that Nino Niederreiter goal. Jared Spurgeon is an honorable mention for Mike Modano. In fact, I would make him number 2. I'm gonna make him literally like the second, like the first runner-up, we'll call him, for Mike Modano. Other than that, I really don't think I'm going to pass out a James Shepard memorial for like the worst player of the week because, Kumper was outstanding. Brodziak wasn't bad. Keith Ballard, he bugs me sometimes out there, but even he was okay at times. It's like, I don't know, and it's like, why just pick on Keith Ballard, He didn't necessarily have like a bad week necessarily, but yeah, I'm not going to have a James Shepard in this one. But to get 4 points in these 2 games, very, very cool. Nice help for the Minnesota Wild as we, head into the break. Hopefully the momentum can continue after that. Obviously, it's going to be quite different when you're off for 3 weeks. You're going to come back hoping for the best. Unfortunately, even with these solid victories, the Wild 10 games over 500, you can say. Obviously, it's still 500. 31-21, 69 points. But unfortunately, Colorado Avalanche not relenting at all. 10 points ahead of the Minnesota Wild still for that final, non-wild card playoff spot in our division, the Central Division. It's got to be about as good as division as there is in hockey. I mean, you got St. Louis, Chicago, Colorado. Ugh, boy, it's tough. I mean, when you think of how good the Wild are and how good they're becoming and that we're in 4th place, it's like, man, it just shows how tough a division this truly is. Oh, my. Colorado is a pain in the butt, and they're only going to get better from what you can tell. They're shucks. Oh, my God. They're like 20 games above 500. Oh, man. Good luck catching them. I don't know about that. I'm just going to have to leave that as is. Ah, boy. Okay, so let's just take a quick break. Let's get to the preview. We're going to only have to preview a couple games, but looking forward to it, and then obviously we'll have to sit out for a while. I mean, I'm not going to be doing shows about the Olympics. I mean, it'd be fun, but, nah, this is a Minnesota Wild show. Maybe we'll talk about their gold medal victory on the next show, if it indeed does happen, and I really hope it does. So let's take a quick break. Let's get to the previews right after this.
Do you shop on Amazon? Did you know that you can support this podcast just by doing your normal shopping on Amazon? It's really easy to do. Just go to thesportstuff.com and click on one of the many Amazon pictures. Do your normal shopping, and Amazon sees that we referred you, and they give us a percentage. We'd like to thank you in advance for supporting thesportstuff.com, and please use our Amazon link. Now enjoy the rest of the show.
We are going round like Saturn.
Too busy to sit in front of a computer? Simply download Brave the Wild on iTunes for Apple devices. For Android, download the Double Twist app. And for Windows and BlackBerry phones, simply find us in the store. And now, back to Palladino Joey. Alright, we are back here on Brave the Wild. Let's preview some hockey games. Alright, so when the Olympic break is over, we got literally two games in the final 2 days of February of 2014. Thursday, February the 27th, the Minnesota Wild head to Edmonton, Alberta. That's right, Edmonton, Alberta. Oh, goody, right? Well, the good news is, in the only other game these two teams have played so far, of course, our former Northwest Division rival, the Minnesota Wild, defeated the Edmonton Oilers 4-1 on Thursday, January the 16th. Nice little game for the Wild. But, obviously, things will be slightly different this time around because it's in Edmonton. Though I do think the Wild return from their break with a victory. I mean, why not? Why not? I mean, Edmonton, well, they have scoring. They don't have goaltending, that's for sure. Ben Scrivens had a couple of good games. That's about it. And he started 6 games. He's the only goalie with the goals against average under 3. And in fact, his is only 2.01. That's been good, but their main starter, Devin Dubnyk, gosh, he's given up almost 3.5 goals a game. Save percentage under 90. Yet he still has 2 shutouts, which is crazy. Taylor Hall has been incredible. He's obviously one of those top prospects in the NHL. A top pick a few years back. Yeah, the Oilers score. They have lots of talent, but they just don't win. I mean, they just don't. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has 43 points in 58 games. But again, yeah, I mean, the Edmonton Oilers just don't win. They don't know how to win, and they're just not what they were long ago, and they're not what they were about 10 years ago when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Carolina Hurricanes. There's certainly nothing left from those days, including their coach Craig McTavish, which some people would have wished was on the Wild. Familiar name Nick Schultz with only 4 assists in 57 games sounds about right. I mean, the guy never scored ever. He was kind of just it's like you don't want to rip him, but at the same time, he was decent defensively. He was, maybe he was above average defensively, but provided absolutely nothing offensively, which is crazy because back in his day when he was young in the juniors and such, he was more of a power play type of kind of a power play quarterback type of defenseman. In the NHL, quite different indeed. Just a very quiet, nondescript defensive defenseman, and that's it. Not that really matters too much going into the Edmonton game. Nick Schultz not really the guy to worry about. It's more of the Taylor Halls and Nugent Hopkins, Jordan Eberle. Lots of talent, David Perrin. I mean, they have a lot of top-end talent. 4 guys with over 40 points. The Wild have 0 guys with over 40 points. So it does tell you something. The Edmonton Oilers can score, but again, their defense is not very good. Their goaltending is not very good. No reason for me to believe the Wild should lose this game. And in fact, if they do, that would be quite disappointing. I'm going to go with a 4-2 Minnesota Wild victory in Edmonton, Alberta. Yes, I think Darcy Kumper will have a nice, solid night in Edmonton, hoping for the best there. Rexall Center. I got to think the Wild could get this done. They're just a better team. Edmonton I think the Wild's offense will hopefully get something done. They didn't score all that much against Tampa or Nashville, but maybe a nice Olympic break. Hopefully they'll come out and kick some butt. Maybe Edmonton will be kind of off their game. that's the hope. Hopefully, Edmonton won't be too professional. The Wild just come out and kick their butts 5-2, 4-2. That's about where I'm standing right now. Let's move on. I got to stop rambling about one game here. Let's move on to the final day of the month, Friday, February the 28th. The Minnesota Wild head to Vancouver. That will be a that's going to be a very tough one. In some ways, Minnesota Wild earlier this year did get a shootout victory over the Vancouver Canucks on December the 17th. 3-2 shootout victory. And that was a home game for the Wild. Oh, boy. The Wild don't usually play well in Vancouver. Once in a while, they do. Amazingly, and beyond amazingly. Luongo's still in Vancouver. I mean, how many times is he in trade rumors? How up and down has he been in his career? I mean, it's like one stretch he's like unbelievable. Nobody gets scoring him, and then all of a sudden he's giving up 7 goals and costing the Vancouver Canucks a Stanley Cup championship. So be it there. Henrik and Daniel both with 40 points on the year. Good for them. Ryan Kessler with 38. Chris Higgins with 33. Vancouver not quite the scoring juggernaut they once were. Certainly not a Stanley Cup contender like they once were, not even that long ago. But they do have a crazy coach who likes to start fights. But that's a perfect fit for Vancouver. Maybe bring back the old Crawford days with the the Minnesota Wild and the Vancouver Canucks. Remember that? Oh, who could forget? All you need to do is bring back Ty Bertuzzi and it's on. But Vancouver, obviously the other wild card team. Minnesota Wild are the 7th seed. The Vancouver Canucks have been the 8th seed for quite a while, though of late. Geez, the Vancouver Canucks not really doing so hot. In fact, they're only 3 games above 500. Not really sure what's going on there. They're kind of in a tailspin right now, other than they're not really scoring all that much. I got to think their coach is a pretty difficult son of a gun. There's no doubt about it. Oh, man. What is going on with the Vancouver Canucks? They have been on a slide. Not that I'm complaining. 7-game slide officially. Actually, the Canucks no longer in the wild card standing. That would be the Phoenix Coyotes by 1 point. 64 points for the Coyotes. 63 for Vancouver. So here comes the Phoenix Coyotes. With a 1-point lead, they are in a tailspin over there in Vancouver. I wonder. It's like you do wonder if old Tortorella, could be in trouble already. Who knows? This team should not be on a 7-game losing streak. No. And I got to think the expectations fairly high in Vancouver, just like they were in New York. Yes, with old Tortsy. New York, things are not going so hot either with Vancouver's former coach. But then again, who am I to say that? They're doing better than Vancouver. They're in 2nd place in that Metropolitan Division. Everybody behind Pittsburgh isn't doing all that hot there, but they're doing enough. Philadelphia, amazingly, would be in the playoffs today. Remember how the Wild just walked all over them? Man, they've been on a streak over there, too. Why am I rambling on and something else? I apologize for that, guys. I'd like to pick a victory in this one, and I'm going to. Just pray to God. The whole fear is, though, this break might be exactly what the Vancouver Canucks need to kind of clear the air, get things done. But the hope is maybe they'll be just more frustrated, more like, what the hell's going on, and the Wild can come out and win. I'm going to go with a... Oh, boy, I'm too scared. It's like, I want to pick a win. Okay, I'll pick a shootout victory for the Wild. A shootout/overtime victory, 3-2 in Vancouver against Roberto Luongo. I think the Wild would win a shootout if it came to it against Luongo. I just somehow could see Roberto screw up somehow, some way in that type of situation. And Darcy Kuemper being the man once again for the Minnesota Wild, and that is the hope. I would really hate to see Kuemper give up some softies against Vancouver, and we lose like 4-1, 4-2, something like that. It's quite possible, but I'll go with a shootout victory. So that would be a positive way to approach things going into Vancouver, British Columbia, our once hated rival. And you know what? They're still a hated rival, just not quite looked on nearly as negatively as in the past. Obviously, it's been a while since that old rivalry. After that, the Minnesota Wild on Monday, March 3rd would actually host the Calgary Flames, but that will be, well, yeah, that will have to be on the next show after we review the last two games. Hopefully another 4-point situation for the Wild, and if that's the case, wouldn't that be awesome? Sure would. So we were going to take a break and get back to the North Star memory and the Iowa Wild checkup right after this. Contact us and support Brave the Wild by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter. Don't forget to call into our phone lines at 209-736-7877. That's 209-736-7877. And we are back here on Brave the Wild. It is time for the North Stars memory and the Iowa Wild checkup. Apologize, this show is a bit shorter because, well, obviously there's not as much to talk about right now. Just 2 games to review, 2 games to preview, and off to the Olympic break, which is where we are now. The North Stars memory this time around won't be really about the North Stars as much. There'll be one North Star involved with it. Well, then again, a lot of times it is just one guy necessary. That guy, in this case, would be Neil Broughton, a member of, you guessed it, the 1980 Olympic hockey team. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to. I had to make this. I had to make this the North Star memory this time around. We all know what happened. Quite the underdog going against the best team ever, right? According to some people at the time, the Russians and all that good stuff. It's not going to directly be about what USA did against the Russians, even though it was the most amazing thing to happen in American sports in quite a long time. It's just cool to recognize the players that were a part of this team, especially the ones from Minnesota. You had Mike Ramsey, who went on to be a solid defenseman in the NHL for many years. He was actually the youngest player on that team out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just a solid overall defensive defenseman in the NHL and a factor in the... obviously quite a factor for the U.S. Olympic team as well. One of the better defensemen there. And the assistant coach for the Minnesota Wild for, not 10 years. Well, yeah, almost 10 years with the Minnesota Wild. Ended up leaving after a year with Todd Richards. Just didn't feel like he really fit in with what Todd Richards was doing. And, well, we saw why that coming season. It just... there was almost no defense under Todd Richards. He was just wide open. Mike Ramsey, I can't imagine he liked that. So he's one of the feature presentations here because he's not only from the U.S. team and from Minnesota, but he was the head coach, assistant with the Wild for a long time. A lot of people saw him as a head coaching candidate. Never happened. A guy that was not from Minnesota, though, who wore number 20 for the U.S. Olympic team, that a lot of you may know about this and a lot of you may not know about this. But Bob Suter, who happened to be from Madison, Wisconsin, and played for Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Badgers back then, again, wore the number 20. Can you guess, Bob Suter, who that just might be? Well, he's the brother of Gary Suter, who played for the Chicago Blackhawks in the in the 80s and I believe early 90s. Also, well, yeah, for quite a while in the league, but also the father of, yes, Ryan Suter of the Minnesota Wild. One of the best defensemen in the NHL right now, could go down as the greatest defenseman in Wild history, unless Jonas Brodin has something to say about that. So far, he's the best defenseman we've ever had, I gotta think, overall. But Bob Suter, that's why Ryan Suter wears number 20. His father wore number 20 back in the day. Not really no NHL career, though. Some of these guys really didn't go on to have much of an NHL career, maybe in and out a bit. Jim Craig never did much in the NHL. It's kind of sad when you consider what these guys did against the Russians and how little they did after that. Neil Broughton, obviously, no introduction necessary. He's obviously from Roseville, Minnesota, had a great career with the North Stars, one of the elite all-time great players for that franchise. In fact, for the North Stars themselves, he was the all-time leading scorer, if you can believe it, because other players kind of came and went, like the Cicerellis, the Bellows was traded, Bobby Smith was traded due to his demand and then eventually came back after a long career with the Montreal Canadiens and won a Stanley Cup with them. A team mixed with Minnesota and Boston, but mostly Minnesota, and then, of course, the one Wisconsinite was Bob Suter. Yeah, pretty cool. I was like, Mark Johnson also, who scored 2 goals against the Russians in that unbelievable game, a 4-3 victory for the U.S. team. quite a awesome feat for them. Mark Johnson out of Madison, Wisconsin. Kind of funny. He was one of the heroes of that great game. Bill Baker out of Grand Rapids, Minnesota, recognized as well. I already mentioned Ramsey. Dave Christian, who was from Warroad, Minnesota, went to North Dakota. North Dakota, the Fighting Sioux. Unfortunately, no more WCHA for the Golden Gophers, which is quite a shame considering the North Dakota Fighting Sioux are still in that conference. And I love that conference. And in fact, they're actually following at Brave the Wild on Twitter, which I think you should as well. It's kind of cool that they're actually following me, even though they're following like thousands of people and thousands of people are following back. But still, it's still neat to see that on my follower list, to see the WCHA, which I always love. Dave Christian played for the Minnesota Moose. Dave Christian played for the Minnesota Moose for one of their 2 years here. I thought that was cool. Actually, I believe both of them. It's like, he was one of the members of the U.S. Olympic team. That's pretty neat when you think about that. Steve Kristoff out of Richfield, Minnesota. Also, that's another one of the heroes of that team. Steve Janasek, another Minnesota Olympian there. Mark Pavlich, Buzz Schneider, Eric Strobel out of Rochester, Minnesota. Phil Verkota from Duluth, Minnesota. So it just shows you how much Minnesota had to do with that U.S. Olympic team. Very cool, because you think it's all mixed with Boston guys in Minnesota. Yes, it was mostly Minnesota and Boston. Ken Morrow, though, is a Flint, Michigan guy, went to Bowling Green. So we see how many Boston guys there were. Gruzioni, of course, the captain. 2, 3, 4. Only four guys. If you can believe it, who actually went to Boston, where he had Minnesota like 100 times. You had 2 Badgers, 1 Bowling Green, 1 North Dakota. But you had Minnesota all over the place. All over the place indeed. You had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from the Gophers, and 2 from the Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, that being Harrington and Pavlich. Quite an awesome memory, quite an awesome feat, and it's just kind of funny, though. It's kind of funny and sad at the same time to see how few of these guys actually had major careers after that. But I guess, what do you expect? I mean, they were college players; they were not NHLers. Where a lot of these outstanding players on Russia had NHL careers later on. Quite an amazing run that they had, indeed. So, just thought I would recognize what they were able to accomplish, the Minnesota players in the Olympics. It's just the perfect time to recognize it, and hopefully, somehow, some way, it helps send them good luck, knowing that we talked about that's kind of silly, isn't it? But whatever. Let's just hopefully send them some good luck here going into the Olympics, bringing up the great 1980 team one more time in our hopeful year that we can get it done. Because remember last time, 4 years ago, Zach Parise and co., a member of the New Jersey Devils at the time, lost the gold medal game in overtime when Sidney Crosby scored for the Canadian team to win the gold. So that's how close we were to winning it. Hopefully this time we get it done. Because Ryan Suter's on it now. Yes, sir. Like father, like son. Go get it, Ryan. Go get it. All right, let's check in on the Iowa Wild briefly here, quite briefly. Well, at least some of the young prospects. A factor this time around, Eric Hall is sent down there during this break, which is a very nice, very wise move by the Minnesota Wild and such, and the Iowa Wild. Eric Hall getting 2 assists in just a couple games down there. Very cool to see. Zach Phillips factoring in again, too, with a goal and an assist the past week. Nice to see him picking up the pace down there a bit. And Stephen Comfer with 2 assists as well. The guy we got in the Greg Zanin trade a couple of years ago. Yeah, still in the minor leagues, but he's been picking it up of late. Now he now has 17 points, so very cool to see. Eric Hall in much limited time, 19 points in Iowa. It just shows you what a factor. I mean, obviously he would be an elite AHL player and has become a very solid NHL player with a nice future. I mean, no reason to think Eric Hall will just be sticking in Iowa for any time. It's just to keep him going because he's still developing. Zach Phillips, though, nice to see him taking a couple steps up here of late. That's encouraging. So let's wrap it up here. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Remember to call into the phone lines. Do give the Facebook page a like and the Twitter a follow would be appreciated. Also, please do give a positive rating for Brave the Wild on iTunes. It would be greatly appreciated. Again, try not to ramble too much because obviously, there's just not as much going on this time around. Trying to get it all covered and move on from here. Thank you all again for listening, and we will be back in a couple weeks after the Olympic break and hoping for a very positive little start and end to the month of February. Wouldn't that be crazy? The Wild would be undefeated in February if they were to win those 2 games. So let's see. Will we indeed be reviewing an undefeated February? We shall find out. Until then, go USA.